When Eliza Morgan's sister screamed, "You've ruined our lives," in front of their nodding parents, she didn't yell back. She simply walked away with nothing but a backpack and her grandmother's forgotten teaching materials. For years, Eliza had been slowly erased from family photos, conversations, and memories until the day her sister Vanessa launched a successful online education platform using Eliza's stolen work. Now, suddenly, after weeks of silence, Eliza's phone won't stop ringing. 14 missed calls. Her family needs her, not to apologize, but to save Vanessa's reputation as the truth threatens to emerge. When those who erased you suddenly need you, do you answer the call? Or do you finally speak your truth? This is the story of a woman who discovers that being invisible might have been a blessing in disguise, because while no one was watching, she built something worth fighting for. The weight of silence hung in the living room as Eliza Morgan stood in the doorway, clutching a twice reheated mug of chamomile tea. Her sister Vanessa sat perched on the edge of their parents' oversized cream sectional, the glow of a ring light illuminating her perfectly styled hair as she wrapped up another live stream. The expensive equipment camera, microphone, backdrop formed a makeshift studio in what had once been a shared family space, now transformed into Vanessa's domain. 50,000 followers. You guys, this is just the beginning. Vanessa's voice carried the practiced excitement of someone who had rehearsed her spontaneity. She flashed her signature smile, head tilted slightly, eyes widened just enough to convey authentic joy. Remember to use code VENISAM for 20% off your first month at Luminous Cosmetics. I'll be announcing something huge next week, so hit that notification bell. Diana and Richard Morgan, their parents, nodded along with approving smiles from the opposite end of the sectional, as though their younger daughter had just announced a Nobel Prize nomination rather than a social media milestone. Diana occasionally glanced at her own reflection in the decorative mirror across the room, adjusting her pearl earring with manicured fingers. Richard scrolled through his phone, looking up periodically to offer an encouraging nod when Vanessa made eye contact. Eliza had become an expert at blending into the background of the family home she'd reluctantly returned to 3 months ago after losing her teaching position to budget cuts. At 26, living with her parents again wasn't part of her plan, but neither was being invisible in her own family. She'd spent the afternoon updating her resume and applying for teaching jobs at local schools and community colleges, work that seemed to go unnoticed. Unlike Vanessa's constant stream of content creation, the laptop screen flickered, and Vanessa's carefully curated smile dropped instantly. The connection wavered, buffering symbols spinning where her live stream had been moments before. "Seriously, not now," she snapped, frantically tapping keys. Her eyes darted accusingly to Eliza. "Why does the connection always go down when you're around? Eliza." Eliza blinked, stunned by the sudden accusation. "I'm just standing here. You stress me out just by breathing," Vanessa barked, gesturing wildly. "You throw off my entire vibe. These are potential sponsors watching." She yanked out her phone, tapping furiously. "Great, they're already messaging about the cut feed. Do you have any idea how hard it is to get brand partnerships?" Eliza looked toward her parents, expecting anyone, to call out the ridiculous accusation. Instead, her mother stood, brushing invisible lint from her tailored slacks. "She's not entirely wrong, Eliza," Diana said calmly, her voice carrying that familiar dismissive tone that Eliza had heard throughout her childhood. "It does seem like whenever something good is happening for Vanessa, something goes wrong when you're around." She paused, meeting Eliza's eyes with a coldness that still shocked her, even after years of preferential treatment. "You've ruined her live stream. Honestly, you've made things harder for all of us since you moved back." Richard Morgan didn't say a word. He simply rubbed the bridge of his nose, exhaling with the quiet resignation of someone too exhausted to intervene. His silence was its own form of agreement, a pattern Eliza had recognized since childhood whenever conflict arose. Her father retreated, leaving her to her mother's judgment and Vanessa's dramatics. Eliza felt heat rising to her face, but she didn't yell. She didn't cry. Years of being the reasonable one had trained her to swallow her reactions. She simply turned and walked down the hall to the guest bedroom they'd reluctantly let her use, until she figured things out. The room was an afterthought, beige walls bare of decoration, generic furniture, a small desk wedged in the corner where she'd set up her laptop. The carpet smelled faintly of dust and expired air freshener, a reminder that this room wasn't meant for long-term occupancy. She moved methodically, packing essentials into her old college backpack. She took her laptop, chargers, teaching materials, 2 changes of clothes, toiletries, no photos, no keepsakes. Those had stopped mattering when she realized no one noticed the cards and letters she used to write for birthdays and holidays, efforts to maintain connection that had gone unacknowledged. 30 minutes later, she left a brief note on her bed. Staying at the Palmetto Inn on 5th, not that you'll worry, grabbed her laptop bag, and walked out the front door. No one asked where she was going. No one tried to stop her. Vanessa's voice drifted from the living room, already recording a new intro for her interrupted live stream. The Palmetto Inn smelled of old cigarettes partially masked by industrial cleaner. The neon sign buzzed outside, casting alternating blue and yellow shadows through the thin curtains. Eliza dropped her backpack near the foot of the bed and sat on the edge of the mattress. It creaked beneath her weight, the sound amplifying in the quiet, and she'd chosen this place not just because it was affordable, 59 per night, with weekly rates available, but because it was on the bus line that would take her to the library and the small coffee shop where she could use free Wi-Fi. Practicality had always been her strength, even when her emotions threatened to overwhelm her. Her phone buzzed once, a text from her mother. "Let us know when you've calmed down." No concern, no questions about where she was, though Eliza had left her location. Just the implication that she, not their treatment of her, was the problem. She didn't respond. Instead, she pulled out her laptop and opened a folder labeled Grandma Maggie's Materials. Inside were meticulously organized lesson plans, study guides, and teaching philosophies her grandmother had developed over 40 years as an educator. Before Maggie Morgan had passed 3 years ago, she'd shared everything with Eliza, recognizing a teaching gift in her eldest granddaughter that no one else in the family seemed to value. "You'll build what no one sees today," Maggie had told her during their last conversation, her hand trembling but her voice steady. At the time, Eliza thought it was just one of her grandmother's inspirational sayings, the kind she'd written in countless student yearbooks over decades of teaching. Now, staring at the course materials on her screen, the words felt like a blueprint. Eliza checked her bank account, $1,842.67, her last paycheck, plus what little she'd managed to save. Not enough to rent an apartment with security deposit in Charlotte's increasingly expensive housing market, but enough to buy time to figure out a plan. She created a budget spreadsheet, calculating how long she could stay at the motel, estimating food costs, transportation, and essential expenses. If she was careful, she had about 6 weeks before she'd be truly desperate. She fell asleep that night with her laptop still open beside her, the glow illuminating the water stains on the ceiling. Over the next 3 weeks, Eliza established a routine. Mornings at a small cafe with free Wi-Fi, nursing a single coffee for hours while applying for teaching positions and researching online tutoring opportunities. afternoons at the public library using borrowed computers to create instructional materials and educational content, evenings preparing lessons in her motel room, adapting her grandmother's methods for online delivery. She registered on tutoring platforms, built a simple website using a free template, and gradually secured a few clients, mostly high school students struggling with standardized tests and college essays. The first session was nerve-wracking, conducted from her motel room with the bed carefully made and a plain wall as her background. But as the students' confusion transformed into understanding, Eliza felt something awaken within her confidence that had been slowly suffocated in her family home. The work was challenging but fulfilling. Each student presented different obstacles, test anxiety, learning differences, gaps in foundational knowledge. Eliza adapted her grandmother's methodologies to each situation, drawing on Maggie's belief that education should be personalized, not standardized. For the first time in years, Eliza felt seen. Her students listened. They asked questions. They said thank you. One girl, Jasmine, said during their third session, "You're the first person who explained this in a way that makes sense." The comment lingered with Eliza, a small validation that her approach to education mattered. By week 3, she had enough clients to afford a small studio apartment in a less desirable neighborhood. It wasn't much a converted garage with a kitchenette and bathroom barely large enough to turn around in, but it was hers. She signed a 6-month lease, stretching her budget to the breaking point, but determined to have stability. The texts from her mother had dwindled to occasional check-ins, perfunctory and distant. "Hope you're well. Dad's birthday dinner is Sunday if you're interested." No questions about her well-being. No acknowledgement of what had transpired. Eliza responded politely but briefly, maintaining the minimum connection required to avoid complete estrangement. She wasn't ready to cut ties entirely, though she couldn't articulate why, even to herself. In late October, 1 month after walking out of her parents' house, Eliza received a message from a potential new student named Marcus. His mother mentioned hearing about Eliza's innovative framework from another parent and was particularly interested in her approach to analytical thinking for standardized tests. Something about the phrasing sounded familiar, too familiar. During their first session, conducted over video chat, Marcus showed Eliza worksheets he'd been using, worksheets that mirrored Eliza's exactly, down to the font choice and example problems. Only the header was different. Success Academy with Vanessa Morgan. Eliza's heart hammered in her chest, but she maintained her composure through the session, guiding Marcus through the material while taking screenshots of the worksheets for later examination. That evening, Eliza fell down a digital rabbit hole. On Vanessa's Instagram, she found promotional posts for a new educational platform launched 3 weeks earlier, right around the time Eliza had left home. The website for Success Academy featured Vanessa's smiling face alongside testimonials about her revolutionary teaching approach and proprietary methodology, all of it built from Eliza's adaptation of her grandmother's work. The resemblance wasn't subtle. The exact phrasing Eliza had developed to explain complex concepts appeared verbatim. The unique organizational structure she'd created for study plans was replicated precisely. Even the practice questions followed the same progression, with only minor word changes. It wasn't inspiration or coincidence, it was wholesale theft. Scrolling through Vanessa's social media, another post caught Eliza's attention. "Family dinner night, so blessed to have these amazing people in my corner." The photo showed Vanessa flanked by their parents, all raising wine glasses in a toast. Behind them, on the wall where the family portrait had hung for years, was a new photo Vanessa, Diana, Richard, and even their golden retriever. Scout. No empty space where Eliza should have been. No acknowledgement of her absence. She had been completely edited out, as if she'd never existed. 6 text messages had come from her mother over the past month. None asked how she was doing. None suggested they missed her. All carried the same underlying message. When are you going to get over this and stop making things difficult? Eliza didn't cry. She had cried too many times over the years, tears that changed nothing. Instead, she took screenshots of everything: the Success Academy website, the identical materials, Vanessa's social media posts, the family photo with her conspicuously absent. She saved them in a folder labeled Evidence, though she wasn't yet sure what she would do with it. The knock on her apartment door came unexpectedly on a Tuesday afternoon in early November. Eliza approached cautiously and peered through the peephole. Olivia Reed, her former best friend, stood shifting nervously in the hallway, her copper hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, so different from her usual polished appearance. Liv. Eliza opened the door, genuinely surprised. They hadn't spoken in over a year. Their friendship another casualty of Eliza's gradual erasure from social circles that Vanessa had come to dominate. The last time they talked, Olivia had been working for a PR firm that handled local influencers, including, increasingly, Vanessa. "Hey," Olivia said softly, "can I come in, inside the small apartment?" Olivia sat awkwardly on the single chair by the window, clutching her purse like a shield. Her eyes darted around the sparse space: the futon that doubled as Eliza's bed, the folding table serving as a desk, the single bookshelf holding Eliza's teaching materials, and the few personal items she'd retrieved from her parents' house during a quick visit when she knew everyone would be out. "It's not much," Eliza said, self-conscious about the contrast between her current living situation and her family's spacious suburban home. "It's yours," Olivia replied, and something in her tone made Eliza look up sharply. Understanding, not pity. "I wasn't sure if I should come," Olivia continued after a moment, "but after what I found." She reached into her bag and pulled out a small gift box wrapped in silver paper, slightly crushed at one corner. A delicate blue ribbon, now wrinkled, was still attached. Eliza recognized it immediately: the birthday gift she'd sent her mother last year. The handwritten card was still attached, the seal unbroken. She had saved for weeks to buy a silver bracelet with her mother's birthstone, accompanied by a heartfelt note expressing her desire to rebuild their relationship. "It was in the drawer with expired coupons," Olivia explained. "I was dropping off some PR materials for Vanessa, and Diana asked me to grab scissors from the kitchen drawer. It was just sitting there like it meant nothing." She hesitated. "I didn't steal it. I wouldn't have taken it if it had been opened. But it wasn't. It wasn't even hidden properly." Eliza took the package, her fingers tracing the edges of the card she'd written with such hope. She didn't open it. She already knew what it said: a plea for reconnection, for understanding, for a place in her mother's life, words that had never been read. "That's not all," Olivia continued, pulling out her tablet. "I left the PR firm last month: creative differences." Her mouth twisted. "But I still have access to some of the email threads. Vanessa's been talking to marketing companies about expanding her platform nationally. This was in one of the pitch emails I was copied on by mistake." The email outlined the Success Academy business model, projected growth, and target demographics. Midway through, Vanessa had written, "My sister is emotionally unstable and bitter about her failed teaching career. She may claim some of this work was hers, but she's just jealous of my success. We don't speak for a reason. This platform represents years of my work developing an approachable educational methodology." Eliza's hand tightened around the tablet. "She's selling my work," she said quietly. "My entire curriculum, everything I built from Grandma's foundation." "I know," Olivia said. I recognized it as soon as I saw the materials. Remember when I helped you format those study guides for your student teaching program? The ones based on your grandmother's methods? She shook her head. Vanessa didn't even change the template. There's more. Olivia hesitated, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, a nervous habit from their college days. I think there was another letter from your grandmother before she died. Something important? Your mom mentioned it once when she thought I wasn't listening. Another letter. Eliza's attention snapped back to Olivia. I only received one. She was arguing with your dad. She said, Maggie made her wishes very clear in that second letter. We can't just ignore the legal arrangements. I don't know what it means, but I thought you should know. That night, after Olivia left, Eliza searched through her email archives, looking for any message from her grandmother in the months before she passed. Nothing. She checked old cloud backups. Still nothing. Finally, she remembered the external hard drive she'd packed, the one place she stored important documents that weren't on her laptop. It took hours to find the right cable to connect the drive, then to sort through years of accumulated files. At 2:37 a.m., bleary-eyed and about to give up, she found it an email from her grandmother with the subject line, "For safekeeping." Attached was a scan of Maggie Morgan's will, specifically the clause regarding intellectual property. All educational materials, curricula, teaching methodologies, and related intellectual property developed by me, Margaret E. Morgan, are hereby bequeathed solely to my granddaughter, Eliza Morgan. This includes all rights to use, distribute, adapt, and profit from these materials. Any use of these materials by other parties without Eliza Morgan's express permission constitutes a violation of this bequest. The document was properly signed, witnessed, and notarized. Eliza sat back, stunned. Her grandmother hadn't just shared her life's work, she'd legally protected it for Eliza's future. Somehow, she had foreseen exactly what might happen. Eliza printed the will and pinned it to the wall above her desk, next to a faded photograph of herself and Maggie at her college graduation, the last major event her grandmother had attended before becoming ill. 3 days later, Eliza's phone erupted with notifications. An educational blogger named Jamie Chen had posted a side-by-side comparison of Success Academy materials and sample worksheets from Eliza's website, questioning the remarkable similarities and raising concerns about intellectual property ethics in the educational community. Comments were flooding in, with former students of Eliza's defending her work. Ms. Morgan's methods helped me raise my SAT score by 300 points. Those are her techniques, not Vanessa's. I've been using Eliza's study systems for 2 years. Success Academy just copied everything and slapped a brand on it. Isn't Vanessa Morgan related to Eliza stealing from your own family? Is low? Within hours, Vanessa posted a tearful video claiming she was being attacked by trolls and sabotaged by jealous competitors. Her eyes, expertly lined despite the apparent distress, welled with tears that never quite fell. Success Academy represents years of my dedication to making education accessible, she insisted. Anyone claiming otherwise is trying to damage my reputation out of envy. By evening, Eliza had 14 missed calls, 3 from her mother, 2 from her father, and 9 from Vanessa. Text messages ranged from accusatory, "Why are you doing this to your sister?" to threatening, "Our family lawyer will be in touch." The last voicemail was from her father. His voice, usually detached, sounded strained. "Eliza, your sister is having a breakdown. People are saying terrible things online. She says you're behind this, but we know you wouldn't do that to family. Call us back. We need to fix this." No apology, no acknowledgement that Vanessa had stolen Eliza's work, just the expectation that Eliza would help clean up a mess she didn't create. She didn't call back. Instead, she contacted Sofia Vasquez, an intellectual property lawyer recommended by one of her online tutoring colleagues. Sophia was younger than Eliza expected, with a direct manner and clear expertise in educational copyright issues. Based on your grandmother's will and the evidence you've provided, we have a solid case, Sophia explained during their consultation in a downtown office that smelled of coffee and new carpet. The documentation you have, especially the time-stamped originals of your materials, strongly supports your claim. But I want to be clear, legal battles like this are rarely quick or easy, especially with family involved. It could take months, possibly longer. Eliza nodded, fingering the strap of her bag. I understand. I'm not doing this for revenge. I'm doing it because it's the truth. My grandmother believed in me and in this work. I can't let it be stolen and misrepresented. There will be financial considerations, Sophia continued, tapping her pen against a legal pad. My fees, filing costs, possibly expert witnesses if needed. I have some savings, Eliza said, thinking of her dwindling bank account. And I'm building my client base. I'll find a way. Over the next 2 months, the process unfolded methodically. Cease and desist letters were sent. Evidence was gathered from students and colleagues willing to testify about the origin of the materials. Arguments were prepared about the distinctive nature of Eliza's adaptations of her grandmother's work. The Success Academy website was temporarily suspended pending investigation, causing Vanessa to post increasingly frantic updates about technical issues and platform maintenance. Throughout it all, the messages from her family evolved from demanding to pleading to threatening. Diana's texts moved from "fix this now" to "why are you hurting your sister" to "you'll regret destroying this family." Richard, typically the silent observer, left a voicemail that simply said, "We raised you better than this." Vanessa oscillated between rage and tearful appeals to sisterly loyalty. None of them acknowledged that Vanessa had stolen Eliza's work. None admitted their part in erasing her. It was as if they lived in a different reality where Eliza was the villain disrupting their perfect family dynamic rather than the victim standing up for herself. Eliza wrestled with doubt during sleepless nights. Was she overreacting? Would her grandmother have wanted this conflict? Was the principle worth the severing of family ties? But each morning, she would look at the evidence, the identical materials, the dismissive emails, the unopened birthday gift, and her resolve would strengthen. In December, just as Eliza was beginning to build momentum with her own growing tutoring business, disaster struck. She received multiple notifications that her website had been suspended due to copyright infringement claims. The educational platforms where she found clients flagged her account for review. Overnight, her income stream threatened to vanish. It's a common tactic, Sophia explained when Eliza called in a panic. They're claiming you stole from them, even though it's the opposite. They're trying to drain your resources and force you to give up. We'll file counter notices, but it will take time to resolve. Through Sophia's legal channels, they eventually traced the complaints to a digital marketing firm retained by Vanessa's management team. It wasn't just Vanessa acting impulsively, it was a calculated attempt to silence Eliza and protect the Success Academy brand at any cost. They're trying to erase me again, Eliza told Olivia over coffee in a small bakery near her apartment. The winter light cast long shadows across their table, reflecting off the holiday decorations that seemed to mock the season's message of family togetherness. Only this time, it's my entire professional existence they want to disappear. Olivia squeezed her hand. Then don't let them. Your grandmother didn't give you her work just for it to be stolen. She believed in you, not Vanessa. That evening, Eliza recorded a video in her small apartment. No dramatic lighting, no tearful pleas, just herself, speaking calmly and clearly about her grandmother's legacy, her own work, and the documented timeline of events. She shared split screen comparisons of her original materials alongside Vanessa's copies, highlighting dates and distinctive elements. She concluded by showing the relevant section of Maggie's will, with personal information redacted. "I've been silent for a long time," she said, looking directly into the camera. "But sometimes truth needs a voice. This isn't about sibling rivalry or jealousy. It's about honoring my grandmother's wishes and protecting work that represents years of educational expertise. I'm not asking anyone to choose sides. I'm simply presenting the facts and standing up for what's right." The response wasn't the immediate tidal wave of support that Eliza had secretly hoped for. Some viewers questioned her motives, suggesting she was just jealous of her more successful sister. Others defended Vanessa, arguing that educational methods couldn't really be owned by anyone. Many simply didn't care about an educational content dispute between sisters. But some voices emerged in support former students, other educators who recognized the integrity of her work, people who had experienced similar family dynamics. Slowly, a community formed around her authenticity. Jamie Chen, the blogger who had first highlighted the similarities, wrote a follow-up piece examining the legal and ethical dimensions of the case, bringing wider attention to the situation. In January, 3 months after Eliza had first discovered the theft, her parents arrived unannounced at her apartment. She saw their luxury SUV pull up outside her window and considered not answering the door. But a part of her, the part that still longed for recognition, for family, made her turn the handle. The three of them stood awkwardly in the narrow hallway. Diana looked thinner, her typically perfect appearance slightly frayed at the edges. Her camel coat was immaculate, but her eyes carried dark circles that makeup couldn't quite conceal. Richard stood half a step behind her, his expression unreadable as always, hands shoved deep in his coat pockets. "We want to talk," Diana said, her voice missing its usual edge of authority. "About a resolution." Eliza didn't invite them in immediately. "A resolution to what, exactly? To Vanessa stealing my work? To you both supporting her instead of me? To years of being treated like I don't matter?" Diana flinched slightly. "May we please come in?" "It's cold out here." The resolution turned out to be a settlement offer. A check with enough zeros to make Eliza pause, accompanied by a non-disclosure agreement that would require her to remove her video, drop all claims, and never speak publicly about the situation again. The legal document, printed on heavy paper with an embossed law firm logo, sat on her small coffee table like a bomb. "Vanessa's building something important," Richard said, the most words he'd strung together in Eliza's presence in years. "This controversy is hurting her brand. It's hurting all of us." "I didn't create the controversy," Eliza replied evenly. "I just refuse to be erased." Diana sighed, adjusting her scarf. "We've all made mistakes. We're offering you a fresh start, financial security. Isn't that what you want? Look at this place, Eliza." Her gaze swept the small apartment with poorly disguised disdain. "You could have so much more." Eliza looked at the check, then at her mother. For a fleeting moment, she considered what that money could do: a down payment on a house, seed funding for her own educational platform, freedom from financial stress. 6 figures would transform her life overnight, but the cost was too high. Silence, complicity, abandonment of the truth and of her grandmother's faith in her. "What I wanted was for you to open my birthday card," she said quietly. "What I wanted was to be seen in my own family. What I wanted was for my sister not to steal my life's work and for you both not to enable it." She handed the envelope back. "I can't be bought into silence. Not even for this much. Diana's face hardened. You're making a mistake. No, Eliza said, finding strength in her own voice. For once, I'm making the right choice for myself. After they left, Eliza sat on her small balcony, wrapped in a blanket against the winter chill, watching twilight settle over the city. The twinkling lights of distant apartments blurred through unshed tears. Her phone buzzed with a text from Olivia. You okay? Getting there, she replied, and was surprised to find she meant it. The legal battle stretched for another 4 months, consuming Eliza's energy and what little savings she had managed to accumulate. She took on extra tutoring clients, often working late into the night to cover her bills while still pursuing the case. Sophia worked with her on a flexible payment plan, believing in the merits of her claim. In May, nearly 8 months after Eliza had walked out of her parents' house, a settlement was finally reached. Vanessa's Success Academy would undergo a rebranding that removed all infringing materials. A modest financial settlement would be paid to Eliza, not the windfall her parents had offered for her silence, but enough to provide breathing room. Most importantly, a public acknowledgement would be made regarding the foundational work of educator Margaret Morgan, as continued by her granddaughter Eliza Morgan. It wasn't a complete victory. Some of Eliza's demands were denied. The financial compensation was less than she'd hoped for. The acknowledgement was carefully worded to minimize embarrassment for Vanessa, presenting the situation as a misunderstanding rather than deliberate theft. But it was enough. The truth was officially recognized, even if in a diluted form. 2 weeks after the settlement, Eliza received a handwritten letter from her mother, the first in years, that wasn't a holiday card with a generic message. The handwriting was shakier than Eliza remembered, less controlled than Diana's usual precise script. I should have opened your gift. Diana wrote, I should have seen what was happening. Your father and I failed you in many ways. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just acknowledging what I should have long ago. Vanessa has always been the louder voice, the one who demanded attention, and we gave in to that too often. It wasn't fair to you. It wasn't right. I don't know if there is a way forward for us, but I wanted you to know that I see that now. It wasn't the sweeping apology Eliza had once dreamed of. It didn't erase years of being diminished and overlooked. But it was a beginning, a small crack in the wall that had been built between them. Eliza didn't respond immediately. Some wounds needed time. Some relationships couldn't be repaired with a single acknowledgement, no matter how heartfelt. She tucked the letter into her grandmother's worn copy of Teaching with Purpose, a fitting bookmark for a chapter not yet finished. By summer, Eliza had launched the Morgan Educational Foundation, a small nonprofit offering scholarships and mentoring to underserved students. The foundation's website featured her grandmother's teaching philosophy alongside Eliza's adaptations, all properly credited and protected. The modest settlement money funded the first round of scholarships, awarded to 5 students whose potential, like Eliza's, had been overlooked by those who should have nurtured it. Vanessa's Success Academy continued operating but never regained its initial momentum. The rebranding distanced it from Maggie Morgan's methodologies, forcing Vanessa to develop original content for the first time. They occasionally crossed paths at industry events, exchanging stiff nods but no words. Some distances couldn't be bridged, at least not yet. In her new office, a converted sunroom in a slightly larger apartment she'd managed to afford with her growing business, Eliza hung a framed note in her grandmother's handwriting, You will build what no one sees today. Beside it, she placed the certificate of incorporation for her foundation, a tangible proof of that prediction. On a Tuesday afternoon in July, almost a year after she'd left home with nothing but a backpack, Eliza received an email from a girl named Maya, a student who'd recently received one of the foundation's scholarships. The message trembled with a familiar pain. My parents tell me I'm wasting my time with writing. Maya had written, they say I'll never make anything of myself. Sometimes I believe them. How do you keep going when the people who are supposed to believe in you don't? Eliza read the message twice, recognizing the familiar pain behind the words. She began typing a response, her fingers moving steadily across the keyboard. Dear Maya, she wrote, sometimes the people closest to us can't see who we truly are or what we're capable of building. That doesn't make your dreams any less valuable or your voice any less necessary. Keep writing, keep creating. The work matters, especially when others don't yet see its worth. And me so may. She paused, considering her next words carefully. They weren't just for Maya, but for the person Eliza had been a year ago, standing in a doorway with a cooling mug of tea, invisible to her own family. The hardest truth I've learned is that sometimes we must build without the support we deserve. But the most beautiful truth I've discovered is that when we build anyway, we find people who truly see us mentors, friends, students, colleagues who value our gifts for what they are, not what others want them to be. She thought of her grandmother, of Olivia returning to her life, of Sophia believing in her case, of students who defended her work, even in a complicated way, of her mother's belated acknowledgement. You are seen. Maya, your words matter. And you are not alone in this journey. Eliza sent the email, then turned to her next lesson plan. Outside, the summer sun cast long shadows across her balcony garden, small plants taking root in their own time, growing toward the light. A text notification lit up her phone, a brief message from her father, his first direct communication in months. Your mother showed me the foundation website. Maggie would be proud. Not an apology, not a full reconciliation, but a small recognition. A beginning, perhaps. She didn't need to be seen by those who had chosen to erase her. She had learned to see herself clearly, to value her own work, to build even when others looked away. That was the real legacy her grandmother had left her, not just teaching materials or legal protections, but the unwavering belief that what she built mattered, even if no one else saw it today. If this story of betrayal, resilience, and reclaiming your worth resonated with you, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps bring more stories like Eliza's to light, stories that remind us sometimes being erased is just the first step to being truly seen. Have you ever stood up for yourself when everyone expected you to stay silent? Share your experience in the comments below. And don't forget to hit that notification bell to catch our next video where we explore another powerful story of courage against all odds. Remember, you will build what no one sees today. Thank you for watching.